Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is the Blue Line Blast podcast. I'm your host, Jim Biringer, alongside my co-host, Matthew Blittner. We are back better than ever. Another segment, another week. The NHL is just rolling along. Sports Equinox is here. We got everything happening at the same time. It's a great time to be a sports fan. Isn't that right, Matthew?
Oh, absolutely, Jim. Great time to be a sports fan. And as you mentioned, Sports Equinox. It's the 32nd Sports Equinox as we're filming this show right now. Every year since 2015, I believe, we've had at least one. We've had one every year. Jim, you're eating good if you're a sports fan. I mean, today you've got NHL games, NBA games, MLB games, NFL games. Oh, and it just so happens that in this particular Sports Equinox, you've got MLS games.
Hey,
Jim,
more the better.
Listen.
Hey, more the better. Again, we got World Series action, but we're in here. We're talking about it. We're diving into it. Feet first, head first, however you want to do it. If it's head first, it better be in the deep end because we don't want no broken necks. So let's do it. Speaking of broken body parts, maybe Jack Hughes is breaking ankles everywhere. New Jersey Devils 8-game winning streak after playing okay in Carolina outside of last third period ish. They've rattled off 8 straight wins, doing it different ways, finding different ways to win hockey games. Again, I guess the flavor of the month, the word of the month, maybe the word of the year, maturity for this New Jersey Devils team.
Absolutely, Jim. We've heard it from multiple guests of ours over the span of the last few weeks. The Devils, it's all a maturation process. And, I really thought you were going to go with calling this the Let's Go Streaking segment just because.
We could. We could.
And we're going to get to the other team that's on a 7-game win streak, but we'll get to them in a few minutes. And you mentioned Jack Hughes. He's right there among the league leaders in goals. Obviously he just had a 2-goal performance on Sunday, including the game-winning overtime goal. Jack Hughes is showing that when healthy, and this is something that everyone's known, but when healthy, he is legitimately one of the top 5 game breakers in the National Hockey League. And oh, by the way, he's only 24 years old still. It feels like he's been in the league forever. Just like it feels like Nico Hischier, the Devils captain, has been in the league forever. Nico Hischier's only 27. Jim, we're old men compared to them. And they're leading the charge on this Devils team that, Matt Laughlin said it, before the season began on our show here, that he expected the Devils to win the Metropolitan Division and at least go to the Eastern Conference Final. Christy Flannery, our colleague who covers the Devils, she does so for the Hockey News. She said she thinks that the Devils can finish in the top 2 in the division and go to at least the second round of the playoffs. Jim, right now, and I haven't looked at any of the gambling lines, and we'll get to sports gambling later on, just trying to stay far, far away from that. But and of course, hot start, they're not going to win 81 consecutive games. It's just not possible. In fact, who was it? I think it was Paul Cotter the other day who said, it's just not possible to play at your best for 82 straight games.
That's true.
But Jim, they'd have to be one of the early favorites right now in season betting, not preseason, but in season, to go to the Stanley Cup final with how dynamic they've been. And if you think about it, it's all been with Jake Allen, and yes, I know Nico Dawes made a start. They haven't had Jacob Markstrom in there. They haven't been fully healthy. They just lost Brett Pesce for what sounds like it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Has not been anywhere close to 100% health in well over a year at this point.
Yeah, easily well over a year.
This team really, you want to say, oh, well, it's hot start. They're banking points right now that you can't bank later on. So this is really a fun team to watch because they can beat you with the special teams. They can beat you with the defense. And oh, by the way, they can just beat you with straight up skill.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable what this team. I've been thinking it was Connor Brown who said it the other day. He said, Jack Hughes has a skill set that's unmatched by anyone in this league. And he's played with Connor McDavid, so that tells you the skill set that Jack Hughes has. I mean, it's unbelievable what he's done with the puck. By the way, guys, take a look at his skates. Reminds you of Sergei Fedorov and those Nike blades. by the way, back in the day. But what he's doing with the puck, Jesper Bratt, the guys are just taking their steps. This is where they're supposed to be. Again, we've said it. Put up or shut up time. What do you want to be? Are you going to use injury as an excuse? Because let's be honest, the last couple of years, this team's been injury ridden, and they come up short and injuries, and we're just injured. But it's time for next man up mentality. We saw Simone Nemec; she's taking steps. They went down to 5D on Sunday against Colorado when Pesci went out. Right, Nemec 3 assists, first 3 assist game in the National Hockey League. He's playing well. Dougie Hamilton stepping up. Guys are playing better. Let's see what Seamus Casey can do if he enters the lineup on this 4-game trip that they go out through the West, right? So they're playing well. Like you said, Jake Allen has been getting majority of the W's. Markstrom only played a handful of games before he got hurt, but he's going to be on the trip. They're starting to get healthy there at least. You have the depth around it. Oh, by the way, Evgeny Danilov only played 1 game, and here we are. They played 1.5 games. So he hasn't been in this lineup fully. Connor Brown's been great. Gritsyuk's been awesome. The depth scoring that they've been looking for. Again, we saw it early last year, so I want to see if it's sustainable. Feels like it's more sustainable this year because the team, no matter what the score is, no matter what the style of play is, they've decided, hey, you know what? We'll just be patient, play a patient game, and we'll let things come to us instead of, okay, we don't like how things are going, we're going to change things up. They could have lost the San Jose Sharks game, and Sheldon Keefe said it. That's a game we lose last year. Then Colorado game, they got pinned in for a majority of that game. After it became 2-2, it could have been 5-2 Avalanche real quick, and that could have just been like, all right, well, we'll fold it in. No, they stayed with it, got a goal, made the Avs chase the game, and they found a way to win a hockey game. Not playing their A game because you can't play your A game for 82 games. They won that game. They won the last couple of games playing a BC type game.
Yeah, Jim, you're absolutely right about that. And just to make a point, continue making your point, about if this is sustainable or not. Last year, it felt like it was either Jack Hughes, Nito Hischier, Jesper Bratt, or Timo Meier who was scoring all the goals. There was literally a stretch of time where you did not see any other player pop up on the score sheet as the goal scorer.
Nope.
And that was the case. Now you look at it, Arsenij Britskit's been a phenomenal player. Yes, you're still getting those big guys all performing. Paul Totter's got a couple of goals. Brendan Dillon chipped in with a couple of goals.
Score machine.
Connor Brown's off to the best start of his career. He's got 6 goals already?
Something like that.
5 or 6 goals. Including a beautiful breakaway, a goal the other day. That's why it's sustainable, because between Connor Brown, Zdanov's gonna score his fair share of goals. Oh, and by the way, everyone was worried that Britskit, before the season, in the preseason, he doesn't look all that great at times. Is he going to be able to perform well in the bottom 6 where it's more of a defensive checking style, which obviously is not his game? He's playing on a second line out of necessity with Nito Hischier and Timo Meier. And Jim, he doesn't look out of place.
No.
As Sheldon Keefe said, he's got some really high peak games, and then he generally follows it up with some, low valley type games. But that's to be expected out of a young kid, especially a young kid coming over where, in Russia, they've got a different size rank, different talent level and everything. That's to be expected as he adjusts to North American hockey. Like, he didn't go play a bunch of games in the AHL to get adjusted. He's here, and he's here to stay. So, Dritskit's been excellent, and he hasn't been out of place. And, Jim, by the way, I can't believe we're over 9 minutes into this conversation. We haven't mentioned them yet. Dawson Mercer.
Looks great. Unbelievable.
Rejuvenated as a third-line center. And we know he's bounced up and down the lineup depending on need, and he's bounced between the wing and center. Jim, first of all, everyone always says, it's a detriment that he doesn't come out of the lineup at all because they're hamstrung by his games played streak. BS on that.
No, okay. Total BS on that.
He's always available. He plays, and let's be honest, for a Devils team that's had a lot of injuries, That's saying something.
Yeah, that's
Okay?
very true. Very true.
But
Not
no
good.
one avoids that streak. No one avoids that. And he's performing really well. He's got Paul Cotter and Connor Brown as his primary wingers. So you've got the speed of Brown mixed with the tenacity of Paul Cotter, who, by the way, Jim, is there any player in the National Hockey League who is happier after the game after they score a goal than Paul Cotter? I'm telling you right now, if you could somehow bottle his enthusiasm and his happiness after the games in which he scores a goal and then just sell it or like sprinkle the world with it, the world would be 1,000 times a better place.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Connor Brown, too. I mean, that guy always with a smile on his face, even after he scored.
No. Look, Connor Brown's always happy. Paul Cotter is happy, but when he scores a goal, it's next level.
That's true. That's very true. Look, real quick, because I know we got to move on to the other streaking team out there. No, and we don't condone streaking only if you're on a hot streak in winning in sports. Don't go streaking.
Campus, rushing a frat.
Right? Well, you could do that too. But look, I'll say this: New Jersey playing well out of the gate. You get 8 straight. You gotta look. They gotta just keep finding ways to win. Good. The streak's not gonna go on forever, right? This isn't video game numbers. I will say this jokingly. I don't think they should ever play a national game ever again because Don LaGreca is 8-0 now. So might have to stay on MSG. Sorry, ESPN, TNT. Sorry, we're taking those games back to MSG.
Well, I don't know about that because the second that Don does a game and they lose, because as you just said, streaks don't last forever. The second that Don calls a game and they lose, the fans are gonna get all annoyed. So I don't know about that last part of your statement.
But that's all right. But anyway, I like the way the New Jersey Devils are playing. They're playing with a different attitude. They're playing with a different mindset. They're whether you want to believe it or not, whether they read it or not, whether they say they believe it, they read it, whatever. They're definitely coming in with that mindset of, look, people are saying, hey, we got to take our next step. Hey, we can't use injuries as an excuse. Hey, we have to mature as a team. What kind of team do we want to be? They're kind of showing it. Hey, you know what? We can be a deep team that can make a deep playoff run. And I think they're really believing what Nico said in the offseason, what Jack said in the offseason, that they can make deep runs. And I think they're really buying into Sheldon Keefe when he said, we believe we can go win every time we put our equipment on and take to the ice. And I think that's the mindset they're playing with.
Absolutely. And Jim, just to tie in one thing that we were just talking about, how Paul Cotter might be the happiest person after he scores a goal. I personally, and this is not a knock on Sheldon Keefe, okay? And I know he's going to see this and he's going to call us out on it.
Yep.
He's not going to be the happiest person on the planet unless they win the Stanley Cup. And that's okay. As the head coach of a team, you don't want your head coach, at least I don't want a head coach of a team getting overexcited on things. Because you talk to him after a win, and the first thing he brings up is where they could have been better.
And that's a good thing, though. That's the mindset you want.
He's a winner.
Okay, and that's what you want.
And he expects more out of his team. Okay,
no,
and he doesn't do it in a John Tortorella way where it makes you feel like, oh crap, we're about to get our heads knocked off of our shoulders.
No,
he does it in a very good way, and I have to give Sheldon Keefe credit on that. But Jim, I do not think he is going to actually show legitimate happiness until after, if they should win the Stanley Cup. And oh, by the way, I can picture him being the perfect. If George Steinbrenner was still alive, he would have been the perfect coach for George Steinbrenner.
Yes,
George
he
Steinbrenner would always, they win the championship. He's happy for 24 hours, and then okay, back to work the next day. That is Sheldon Keefe for you.
All right, real quick before we go to Utah, I'll say this: I think if the Devils somehow beat the Leafs on the way there, I think he's going to get a little extra happiness out of that one. But we got to get there first.
If the Devils beat the Leafs in the playoffs, you might get the cameras out on him. Don't even bother putting the cameras on the players. Just keep the cameras on him from 30 seconds to go until 24 hours after the game ends.
Yeah, exactly. So, all think that's where I think there, but I agree with you. I like his mindset. Speaking of a mindset that change of attitude, change of mentality, Utah Mammoth, Woolly Mammoth, they're not extinct anymore. They're marching their way, and they marched their way to the top of the Central Division. I mean, we predicted them as a playoff team, but I don't think
Yeah, the wild card team.
Yeah, but I don't think we envisioned this. I mean, Logan Cooley's doing what he's doing. Dylan Gunther, Nick Schmaltz. I mean, the list goes on of guys that, again, another team that when they relocated, expanded to Utah from the Arizona Coyotes, the expectations from people you talk to around that team said they needed to put up or shut up, take the next step, find out who they are this year, because I think there's a little pressure on Andre Tournier out there in Utah. If this team didn't perform with all the additions they made, he could have been on the hot seat and might have been fired.
Absolutely. And, right now it is a hot start. I'm not quite sure it's as sustainable as, let's say, the Devils might be, but I do think they are going to be a playoff team. And, Jim, you mentioned Logan Cooley. I mean, Logan Cooley right now is costing the Mammoth a lot of future money. Now, I don't think they should have signed them beforehand. Okay, I'm not saying, oh, well, hindsight's 2020. No, I don't think he would have deserved a long-term deal for bid money. But, Jim, if he continues at 85% of the rate that he's going right now, the Utah Mammoth are going to have to pretty much open the checkbook and say, okay, listen, Logan, here's the check. Write in the number that you want, as long as it doesn't have, as long as it's not crazy, and go to the bank with it. Because this kid's been unbelievable. And I know people were waiting a couple of years. He was a number 4 draft pick overall, I think it was.
Yep.
And Jim, if this was still Arizona under the Marullo family ownership, he'd be traded. Not because
he would have been gone already.
Because the money that he'd be owed would be astronomical. But,
no, I agree with that.
And Jim, Clayton Keller, I mean, the guy does not get enough credit for his leadership.
No, absolutely not.
He does not get anywhere near enough credit for his leadership. So between having Keller on the team, Cooley, as you said, turning as a coach, and Armstrong as the GM right now, Jim, this team is very much like, again, I'm going to stick by it. This is not sustainable. They're not all of a sudden going to reel off 20 wins in a row. They're not going to come anywhere close to that. But this team is a lot better than people thought they were going to be. And every year there's that one surprise team that takes people and it's like, oh, and I know there was some ridicule when they introduced Tusky as the mascot.
I like Tusky.
But Jim, this is a very good story to start the 2025-26 season. And I think I speak for hockey fans and media in general. I can't wait to see what the Utah Mammoth do in November, December, and so forth.
Well, when the months get colder, that's when the Mammoth attack, and that's when they're out, and that's when they love to be out. Yeah, no puns intended. I'm sorry. I had to go down that road. But the addition of J.J. Peterka, huge. John Marino has stepped up. Mikhail Sergachev has played well. Kirill Vamelka between the pipes. Vitek Vanacek has played well, too. Like, again, they've made big splashes. Some have been hits, some have been misses. But the Peterka kid, he bet on himself. He didn't want to be in Buffalo anymore. He wanted to go to Utah. They made the deal. Ryan Smith has really given.
Bet on Buffalo.
Yeah, exactly. But Ryan Smith has allowed Bill Armstrong to do his thing within reason. They want to win. They've upgraded the facility, practice facility. Players like being there. They've added winners. Kevin Stenlin's there. You got guys like that. Again, Brandon Tanev's there. A nice mix of veterans and young guys. But again, I'll say this, and I've said this other places. Utah. Whether it was Utah, Arizona, or whatever. The Coyotes showed signs of this early in seasons, and it was never sustainable, and they would flutter, and they would fall short. This Utah team is rejuvenated. Everybody expected them to make playoffs last year. They didn't. This is the year they make playoffs. They're playing really well. I think they can sustain. I'm not saying this winning streak's going to go on forever. I don't think it will, but they're going to be able to bounce back better and not go on massive losing streaks.
Jim, to cap off our Utah Mammoth segment here, before we get to our guest, Jessica Kwong from the Sports Radio Service, I'm going to give a blast from the blue line right now. It's not 105 miles an hour, but I'm going to say it's about 96 miles an hour.
That's still a good slap shot, though.
Yeah, 96 miles an hour straight from the blue line right now. Not only are the Utah Mammoth going to make the playoffs, which you and I have been in agreement on since the preseason, they're going to win their first-round series. I'm not saying they're going to go any further than that, but they're going to win their first-round series. It might take 7 games. In fact, it probably will take 6 or 7 games. They're going to win their first-round series and go to the second round. Jim, you can put it down as Howie Rose of the New York Mets like to say. You can put it in the books. Utah Mammoth are going to the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs in the spring of 2026.
I like it. I love it. And give me some more of it. So I think I agree with you. I think Utah's going there. I think they're going to make a nice run this year. And I can't wait to see what happens as the months go on for the Utah Mammoth. No longer the hockey club.
Yeah, and now it's time to go to our non-existent sponsor break. And Jim, if there's any one thing I'd like to see change, I would love to be able to actually have a name to put for that. But we're going to go to our non-existent sponsor break, ladies and gentlemen. And on the other side, we're going to be joined by our friend Jessica Kwong, who covers the San Jose Sharks among the other Bay Area teams for the Sports Radio Service. And Jim, we'll be back right after a message from, well, empty space. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from our non-existent sponsor break. I'm co-host Matthew Blittner, joined, of course, by co-host Jim Biringer. We're now joined and welcomed by our friend of the show, Jessica Kwong from the Sports Radio Service. Jessica, welcome to the Blue Line Blast podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's our pleasure. So, Jessica, to get started, you cover the San Jose Sharks, you cover the Bay Area teams. San Jose Sharks have been an interesting team so far this year. Not quite in the wins department, but you can see the growth of some of their young players. And I guess we'll start with Macklin Celebrini, who, he's put himself at the front runner for a lot of conversation so far in terms of the maturation process and everything. Just what are you seeing out of them?
Right. Well, like you said, the Sharks are rebuilding. They are a very young team, and at the core of this is definitely Celebrini. He had a hat trick in the Sharks' first win of the season at Madison Square Garden on Thursday, and I was there to watch it. It was quite exciting. That was a great one for him. And also during the last game, which was on Sunday against the Minnesota Wild, he had the overtime. He had an overtime goal that put them 6-5 over the Wild. So he's definitely been a big talking point right now, and understandably so, because he seems like he is carrying the Sharks forward at this moment.
Yeah, and obviously with, Macklin Celebrini playing the way he's been playing up there just behind, I believe, Nick Schmaltz and Jack Eichel for points lead. He's up there, and his name is now being brought up again for Team Canada, the Olympics. And I was asked about this over the summer. I want to get your thoughts on it. Do you see him the way he's playing now, playing himself onto that roster come February?
I definitely think he has a chance. He's only 19 years old, and he's with a team that is obviously rebuilding. So for him to be almost sort of a leader in carrying the team forward right now shows that he's got a lot of growth and a lot of potential. So he's not part of a team that is sort of right now seeming to be in playoff contention or anything like that. So for him to be able to do that individually is a big thing, and I think is worthy of that sort of consideration at this time.
Now, Celebrini, and to Jim's point, he's playing himself into Olympic conversation. He's doing things that a 19-year-old hasn't done since Sidney Crosby was 19, and before that, when Wayne Gretzky was 19. Would it be for Celebrini's benefit to, even if he made Team Canada, it would probably be a reduced role? He's not going to be on the top 2 lines just because you see all the talent that Team Canada has. But would it benefit him in the long run to make it maybe be in and out of the lineup, to be at least around Team Canada? That way, 4 years from now, he's even more ready to join them on a more full-time basis.
I think it's definitely would be a good experience for him. And like you said, not many 19-year-olds have done this before. And for him to be up there, even if he's not, one of the top players and always on the ice, is going to be a big deal. It's going to help not only him, but also the Sharks and their reputation, and for other teams and fans of other outside of San Jose to be watching them. So I think that it's a really good step for him. Hopefully he does make it. I think it'd be great for him and the team.
Now, not just Celebrini, they have a nice young core there in San Jose. It reminds me a lot of what I've been seeing with the play of the Montreal Canadiens. It feels like Mike Greer's kind of taking a page out of the Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes playbook with all the young players up there. But it's not just Celebrini, Will Smith, Eklund. They're all combining to produce for this team. And, everybody wants to look at the first, I believe, 7 games they were winless. Yeah, you could put that in the past because everybody wants to focus on the present. And I think they're feeding off the fact now that they've had 2 wins out of the last 3 games, and they played well against New Jersey, could have won that one. What have you seen in their growth through that losing streak and now into winning these last 2 of the last 3 games?
I think that as a team that they know that they are rebuilding, and not only the players, but the coach, the head coach believes that they were eventually going to get a win, and they were aiming for MSG. They got it there. So I think that one of the things that the head coach, Ryan Warzewski, said was that players are still showing up. They're putting in a lot of effort during practice. They're showing up for practice even if they don't have to. I was at one of them in New York City at the Skyrink in the one off day they had here in the New York metropolitan area. But they are all putting in the effort, and they believe that they're going to get the wins. And since they do believe that they are coming, so I think that that is a testament to how far they've come, even though they had a quite terrible, very terrible start to the season and are still 7th in the Pacific Division.
Now, obviously, we've touched on, the Sharks are, as we've said multiple times, a young, growing team. And part of that is now the presence of Michael Misa, who, was a high draft pick back in June. But Misa hasn't played every game. It seems like they're almost trying to employ, I don't want to call it load management, but they're employing where he plays some games, he takes some games off as they try to slowly bring him along. What are you seeing out of that? What do you think of that potential plan that the Sharks clearly are doing for Misa in the early going?
Well, he is the number 2 draft pick of 2025 and only 18 years old. So I think that they are taking a good strategy with him. They don't want to overball him right off the bat, giving him some time on and off, like you said. And I think it's showed because he did score his first goal of his career in the NHL this past Sunday against the Wild. So it came sometime in the second period, and that was a big step for him. So I think that without overwhelming him, they are giving him the chance to succeed, and it's starting to show little by little.
Now, we go up to the front. We talked about Misa, Will Smith, and you look at the way the Sharks play their games, and they want to be hard to play against like every team does. Where do you see this team moving forward, especially with the veterans there like Tyler Toffoli and Jeff Skinner? That seems to be a great addition. What's the balance that Mike Greer is trying to get with this team?
I think they're slowly starting to shift towards the young guys, Misa, Will Smith, and Celebrini. I think that is the strategy that they're moving forward with, and they are taking a lot of time to get these guys seasoned. For example, Misa during practice said he's been working on the face-offs and moving his feet quickly and puck protection. So I think that the strategy should be focusing on the young guys with support from the veterans who seem to be there for the young guys. And I think that is the future of the team. I do believe that.
And part of the future of the team is obviously their goaltending. They have a young goaltender who used to be the number 1 prospect or one of the top prospects for the Nashville Predators, Yaroslav Askarov, who his numbers aren't great this year, but we saw it against New Jersey. He really stole the show with quite a number of really big saves, including he went post to post on what looked like a guaranteed Nico Hischier goal. What do you see out of Yaroslav that gives the Sharks hope that he could be that foundational piece in net?
I think Askarov is contributing to the team. For example, during the doubles game on Friday, the Sharks did lose that game, but they held without a shot in the second and were down only 2-1 in that period, thanks to Askarov. He was putting up an effort, and they had a tough second period, but overall it was, I think, an all right game for him. So he definitely has room to improve, but I also think that it's not a complete disaster to have him there right now as a goalie.
What have you seen from the guys on the back end, like a Sam Dickinson? I know it's a young D-core, and they've been trying to get their defense. They're trying to find that top guy on their back end. Is that an area that they're trying to improve?
In the defense, I think that I don't know how hard they're working on that, to be honest, but I think that one of the things that the Sharks really have been suffering with recently are penalties. So they've got to improve in all areas, I think, but obviously defense is a very important part of hockey and something they should focus on.
Now, in terms of focus, the coaching staff, the front office, they have one eye on the present, obviously, because you want to win, you want to instill that culture. You don't want to instill a losing culture. But they also, as you mentioned earlier, they're in a rebuild. They do have an eye on the future. What's your take on the direction that both the coaching staff and the front office have taken early this year? And where do you expect that to go as the season progresses?
I think they are investing in the young team. They also, I believe, have boosted their staffing, their coaching staff quite a bit. So they're being honest with where they are at, and I think they're making the right investments with trying to have the veteran players coach the younger players and giving them some time on the ice, also not pushing them too hard. I think that is probably the best strategy right now. In my opinion, it's going to be an uphill battle either way for the Sharks. Last season, as we know, they were also sort of near the bottom of the rankings, and it's an uphill battle. So they have to take it step by step.
And with step by step, you can. I mean, obviously, it playoffs for them probably not this year, but is there an expectation for this team to try to compete maybe in a year or two to be playing those competitive games like I mentioned before with the Canadians, like how they were supposed to do that last year and then everything fell off in the Eastern Conference they got in. But do they have like a timeline when they need to say, okay, enough of this rebuild, high draft picks, when are we moving on to the next phase of everything?
Well, having covered the Sharks at SAP Center was quite a while ago, maybe about a decade ago or so. They have a very, very strong fan base that has a lot of faith with them, which is, I think, very lucky for them that they always have a loud stadium. Seems like they have hardcore fans that will stick with them through thin or thin. They aren't bandwagon fans. So that's a very positive thing for them, especially for those home games. But I think that I don't know how much longer this can last for the Sharks. They need to have some progress. They have to get they have to stop ending the season at the bottom of the rankings in order to sustain that, I think, before fans start to get impatient, especially if you have a young team now, and if it's 3 years down the line or 2 years down the line, and there's still no progress with the rankings and the record, then it could be a problem. I think it definitely would be.
So, Jessica, before we let you go here, GM Mike Greer is, as we've alluded to, he's doing what he can to build the young nucleus of this team. He's got some draft picks in place. What do you see the plan being for this team at the trade deadline and then in free agency next offseason? Is he going to start trying to augment this roster with some players who can help them win now, or is it still build through the draft, go slowly, let players, prove that they are what they can be?
I think the time is to push the players that they have now to get the wins. They have, an 18-year-old, a couple of 19-year-olds, I believe, already on the team. And if you're going to bring in some more young top draft picks, that's always great. But you can't always be in rebuild mode forever. So I think that they really have to work on investing in these players that they have right now and getting them to be as strong as they can. And hopefully that can translate into some results for the team and some wins, which is really what matters.
Yeah, definitely. That's what matters the most. And obviously they're going to have a big challenge ahead because the team that they faced on Friday is coming into SAP Center on, I believe, Thursday. They play the Devils in a rematch. So I'm wondering maybe they can take some of those lessons that they learned in that game and translate it and play a little bit harder. And maybe, you never know, push the Devils to the limit and in overtime.
Right. It seems like they always seem to have a decent start to their games recently, at least the ones they had here in the metropolitan area. They were scoring the first goal, but somehow they would fall apart near the end or get that last minute overtime win, which happened twice, but can't always cut it that close. So they have to work on that for sure.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much for, giving us the insights into what's going on with the San Jose Sharks. One of the youngest teams in the NHL, one of the potentially most exciting going forward if the talent really does become what they can and be. So, again, we thank you for coming on the Blue Line Blast podcast here. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Jessica Twan's work for the sports radio service. And we'll be back on the other side of our second non-existent sponsor break of the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from our second non-existent sponsor break of the show. Jim, at some point, we got to get a sponsor.
We got to get somebody. Come on, guys.
Something, anything. But, Jim, right now, I think we've got to go into, and it's not going to be our surprises and disappointments because we're getting a little too far into the season for that, but our overreactions and underreactions for teams around the league right now. Jim, I'm going to start with a team that you and I love to bash, and that is the team that calls the world's most famous arena home.
Ooh.
And that is the New York Rangers.
Ooh, I like it. Let's go.
They can't win a game. They can't score. No. And when they finally do score, they still can't win.
Nope.
Jim, a lot of people thought that the Rangers would have a bounce back year, the first year coaching bump that they seem to experience, that, Mike Sullivan was going to get a lot out of them, that the way they were playing defensively to start this season, that even though the wins weren't coming, that the wins eventually would come because it was laying a good foundation. Jim, that's all gone kaput. Okay? No. And I'm going to give my second blast from the blue line of this episode. And the last one was about 96. This is about 104 miles an hour right now. Okay, if you're a goalie, you might just want to get out of the way of this blast.
Fulton Reed style. Let's go.
Not only are the New York Rangers a bad team right now, Jim, they might even legitimately be worse than how they're playing right now. Okay, they have not hit rock bottom yet, and my reasoning for that is they've still, as much as the defense has fallen apart these last couple games, they're still getting some contributions from a couple of players, and I don't mean offensive with it showing up on the score sheet. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. But, you look at like a Braden Schneider, he hasn't played that poorly. You look at Matthew Robinson, he's actually played pretty decently when he's been in the lineup. If you look at JT Miller, he hasn't really been scoring, but he's been okay-ish. Obviously Taylor Radish has been very good for them so far. Igor Shesterkin, yes, I know he's coming off of 2 straight games. I think it's either the first or second time in his career in which he's allowed 11 goals over 2 games. But Shesterkin has been pretty good outside of the 2-game stretch. Jim, they're going to get worse. Meet the man that can't buy a goal, okay? Nope. He cannot buy a goal, and fans, everyone thinks, oh, well, he was a 40-goal scorer a couple of years ago. He was never a real 40-goal scorer. 40-goal scorers are the guys who do it year in, year out. He had a career year. He scored 40-plus goals. Okay, great. He's never once done that ever again, whether before or after. Temi Panarin's 34. Okay. Yeah, he's still going to probably end up with, right around a point a game, maybe, 85 points-ish. He's not that impact player that he once was. Will Tully has been overexposed in the top 6, and you saw he's now been demoted to the third line. Alexis Lafreniere, not only is he a bust, Jim, everyone knows that the kid does not have any motivation. He played well when he knew he was playing for a contract. And ever since then, it hasn't even been steadily off a cliff.
No,
he went into the cliff and went straight down.
Yeah. Okay. That was a 90-degree drop.
Yeah, that was a 90-degree drop. Noah Lobson, he's been all right, but he's a third-line center in his first full year as a pro. What are you expecting out of him? And Brennan Othmann is gonna get traded. Okay.
Yeah, 100%.
And-
And then he'll be fine.
Right. And he'll be fine to say, well, same way Tapo Tato has been fine out in Seattle. That, Filipino was fine outside of his injuries in Vancouver. How JT Miller was fine in Tampa Bay and then Vancouver.
How about Keandre Miller in Carolina?
Keandre Miller, who, he's a bit banged up. And Jim, JT Miller, he alternates these great years with the very good years. And he's, I can't even say he's going to be a very good year this year with the way he's playing. Because it doesn't seem like he's got that right here. And Jim, you listen to him talk, you listen to Zibanejad talk, you listen to Mike Sullivan talk, and they're at a loss for words on where they are at the moment. When a team is showing that frustration early and doesn't have anything that they can hang their hat on, they haven't even bottomed out yet.
No, they have not. And look, I said it last year, I'll say it again this year. There's too many distractions. They have an organizational problem, and it starts at the top. And everybody knows who I'm pointing at. And it's not Chris Drury, though Chris Drury is part of the problem. It's James Dolan. Because unrealistic expectations, and maybe I'll continue this blast from the blue line. Because, look, I'm trying to be an analyst here. Everybody knows, growing up kid, I wasn't a big Ranger guy. But look, if you look at it from an analytical side of things, you break it down, the Rangers owner, James Dolan, got false hope and false expectations during the COVID bubble. Plain and simple. If the regular season plays out the way it was supposed to play out and the season doesn't stop and the NHL doesn't go to this 24-team playoff, because I know everybody says conspiracy theory, this and that. Guarantee you, if Buffalo, New Jersey, and name another bad team were in the same position the Rangers and Canadians were, they're still playing 16 teams. Don't at me, because I believe that 100%. But they got false expectations because the season played out. They would have missed the playoffs, and they would have missed the playoffs the following year when Gorton and JD were still there. But they got false expectations. Oh, we made the playoffs. Oh, we missed the following year. Oh, got to can everybody. We're trying to hot shot a championship. This team needed to go through a proper rebuild. They never did it, and now they're paying a price for it. Yeah, it doesn't help that Vincent Trocheck's out of the lineup. I get it, because Zibanejad was supposed to be playing on the wing with JT Miller. I get it. But you know what? Lafreniere not producing. I cannot use the COVID draft anymore as an excuse for the kid. He just doesn't work hard, and he has no motivation to improve. Everybody else in that draft class is improved. Even Quentin Byfield, who went behind him. He's going to be the number one center in LA when Anze Kopitar retires. So they need to look in the mirror and find out, okay, what are we? What's our plan? What are we going through? Because Chris Drury should never have been given that extension. Mike Sullivan should have never been hired as the head coach. Because, again, the defensive issues that were in Pittsburgh going back to 2022 are rearing its ugly head in New York right now. And the personnel is not great, but the personnel in Pittsburgh was and yet Dan Muse is getting these guys to play better defensively, including Erik Karlsson, who was not known as a defensive defenseman. Well, so they got to look in the mirror and figure this out, because the country club stuff has to stop in that room. I think Panarin needs to go, and I think Lafreniere needs to go, and I think Zibanejad needs to go, and they have to change this entire thing.
So I agree with you that the players need to go, because this same group has been what's killed multiple coaches now.
Right.
And I don't even blame Mike Sullivan, because, Jim, you just said, well, the Pittsburgh defensive thing going back to 2022. This is the same Rangers defensive issues that go back even further than that.
Well, it's the same issue, real quick. It's the same issue that's been with this team going back to the Henrik Lundqvist days and the Mike Richter days. They rely on their goaltender to win them games. They counterpunch, and they don't attack.
Right. So, again, you can't blame that specific part on Mike Sullivan.
No, but the defensive breakdowns in the zone are the same things I saw in Pittsburgh.
Yes, but they're the same things that you've seen in New York before Sullivan ever came here. Now, also, they did go through a proper rebuild, when they sent out the letter. They didn't draft very well. They didn't get very lucky with their draft picks. Okay. And Jim, I'm about to give my third blast from the blue line.
Woo!
And this one might very well get our show banned by Madison Square Garden. Okay.
Right.
This is a 140 mile an hour slap shot that you can't even reach 140 miles an hour currently, but at some point in the future, you might, with the technology of sticks. Jim, this team is more concerned, this franchise is more concerned with which media members they're keeping out than building a proper roster.
Wow.
Okay. The amount of people that I've heard that they are saying, no, you can't come in, to long-time respected journalists, just because they don't feel like having them there because they don't want to answer the tough questions that those journalists have for them. Jim, they're more concerned with that than they are with building a proper team. Don't at me on it. I'm not naming names.
I'm not gonna, because let me tell you something. I've heard the
they
same
are more
thing.
concerned with that than they are with building a proper roster.
I heard the same thing as somebody told me. This is why we have sources. They would rather play in front of no media and no fans if they could.
Right. So, there's my third blast from the blue line this episode.
Hey,
and I don't think it gets any hotter than that, because I guarantee you we're going to be hearing from some very disgruntled people after that last one.
Yeah, well, guess what? I guess the truth hurts, right? So, look, this is the way it's going down with this New York Rangers team. They're not a good team. They haven't been a good team for years. They went to 2 conference finals, I get it, and you lost to Tampa and you lost to Florida. But after you had leads in those series, you kind of went away, and they took advantage of you the whole way. So I think the Rangers, big-time problems. You know who did this is not an overreaction. This may be an underreaction. I don't even know. Washington Capitals sustained success under Spencer Carberry. What they've done with the retool that they've gone through, bringing in the players that they've had, the drafting, developing. Alexei Protas is there. Yes, we know Alex Ovechkin is getting up there, potentially his last season in NHL, as Greg Wyszynski has said when he was on. But they've done things the right way. Rasmus Sandin, part of that trade, very good player, right? Brian Leonard, draft developed. They have done things the right way. Logan Thompson probably should be on a Team Canada roster for the goaltender. Could be the starting goaltender for this team, because the guys that they've listed haven't played great this year. Hate to break the news to you. They haven't. None of them have, right? Aiden Hill's hurt. Bennington's been okay. Montembeault has fallen off from what he was last year. So Logan Thompson could be your Team Canada starting goaltender in February, and I think it's been great. Spencer Carberry is getting Pierre-Luc Dubois to play the game that we all thought he could play years ago. Sonny Milano's chipping in, right? Dylan Strom's the number 1 center in this league. They have good pieces around. Jacob Chikrin. Again, this is how things are supposed to be done. You build, you get the right coach, you look outside your organization, or maybe you look to the AHL. Chris Knobloch, who is in Edmonton right now, should have been the guy coaching the Rangers. Yes, I really believe that. Spencer Carberry's done well. Dan Muse, the young talent, instead of recycling coaches and said, I wanted this guy from the beginning, maybe you got to look to elsewhere, because the young guys, the young coaches in this league know what they're doing.
They do. And Jim, it's funny. I thought that you were going to go, and the way you've been on social media, okay, and really touting Frank Nazar's trumpet on this one, because him and the Chicago Blackhawks, they've been a revelation early this season. Now, do I think it's going to be sustained and go to the playoffs? Absolutely not. Okay, but they're playing very well right now. Nazar's been absolutely terrific in the early going. And oh, by the way, Lucas Reichel got traded away for a 4th-round pick. When do you? And I know he needed to change the scenery, but when do you see a team give up on such a young player like that for basically nothing? I mean, not to say a 4th-round pick is nothing, but Jim, come on. And I'm not saying it's not the right move, but Chicago seems to be building some positive momentum for itself after years and years of negative momentum. Okay, they were going backwards. They couldn't even stall out. They were just consistently free fall, and every time you thought it can't get worse, it somehow got worse. Right now, they're doing, and Connor Bedard's playing well. Spencer Knight has been excellent in goal for them for the most part. Jim, I think the Blackhawks are starting to turn a little bit of a corner. Okay? They're no longer, you can't walk all over them anymore.
No.
Okay? You can, they're a tough team, just like how the San Jose Sharks are being a tough team. They're not a team that you can just be like, oh, yeah, we're going to beat them 5-0 without trying. It's not the case anymore.
No.
Okay? Are they still going to probably finish in the bottom 5 of the league? Yes. Are they going to go down kicking and screaming? Yes. They're going to go down kicking and screaming. They're not going to go down and just roll over so easily.
No.
And I think that's the next step for the Blackhawks and for the Sharks too. And you know what? I'll throw the Anaheim Ducks in there as well.
Yeah.
You have to, after you bottom out and after you give young players a chance to establish that they should be in the lineup every night, they have to find who they are. And I know it's cliche, but in order to win, you have to lose. And you have to learn to lose. You can't just lose without trying and without...
Buffalo? Sorry.
Yeah, I feel like every week we just completely crap all over Buffalo.
I'm sorry.
We're public enemy number 1 in Buffalo.
That's okay.
But, we're going to be public enemy in Buffalo and we're going to be public enemy in Manhattan. So, we're making some enemies out there.
That's all right.
After you learn that you can't just let yourself be walked all over, then you start losing by, you lose 5-4. You lose hard-fought games. You lose in overtime. You lose in a shootout. You lose after, you put together a hard effort. You thought maybe you might squeak it out, but, you just didn't quite have the pieces. But you played your best. And then after that, then you start winning a little bit. And then you start becoming a contender. I could have been a contender, Jim.
I could have been there. Could have been there.
So that's where the Blackhawks, the Sharks, the Ducks, that's where they're headed right now. And I think it's a very good sign. I mean, look at the Montreal Canadiens.
Hey.
They were a losing team. Okay.
Yep.
Now, they didn't quite bottom out as badly as the other 3 teams that we just mentioned. But, they were bad. They got some kids. They put them in the lineup. They had Marty St. Louis, who, honestly, I don't think Marty St. Louis gets enough credit as the head coach for the atmosphere and culture that he's helped instill in Montreal. And you slowly take those steps. Yeah, it's going to be painful. You're going to lose games. But then you start winning, and then, maybe you track in on a year that, your division is weak or something, and you get a wild card berth. And then from there, then you start really showing what you can do. Every team goes through it at some point, unless you're Buffalo, or unless you're the New York Jets. Actually, you know what? I strike that from the record. We can't
crap on the Jets right now. Come on.
Yeah, no, we can't crap on the New York Jets right now. But that's where these young teams start to go. Okay, Utah's going through it right now. They're believing in themselves.
The Devils went through it.
The Devils went through it for a decade, for the most part.
Better part of a decade, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the lesson to be learned here. The Chicago Blackhawks, yeah, they're a surprise team right now, and they're probably going to fall back to the pack. But they're taking those steps. And, Jim, that's a positive that you can't take away.
No, it's not. I mean, I love what Chicago's doing. I think they've decided that, hey, you know what? Yeah, we've gone through some growing pains, but we got to be like Montreal. We got to bring in those veteran guys. We got to take the next steps. We can't just keep getting draft picks, drafting, developing. At some point, though, you got to add a piece here, a piece there that brings you to the next level. Like we've seen with Montreal, what they've done with the Alex Newhooks of the world, right? Bring him in, Kirby Docks, Patrick Laine is, even though he's been hurt, he's out 3 to 4 months sports hernia. Unfortunate for him since he's been there. But they've decided, hey, we got Ivan Demidov's there, but our guys have to take the next step. We got to show our group that we just can't tail off. We're not satisfied with that. We want to make playoffs. So I think Chicago in the next couple of years could be something, a team like that. And look, it may be an overreaction, But I love the way the Pittsburgh Penguins are playing. Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, those guys turning back the clocks. Erik Karlsson is playing really well. Chris Letang, their goaltending. Arthur Sivas got to be the steal of the offseason, the way he's come in and played well for that team. Goaltending wise, defensively, they're playing well. I love what this team has. Kindle's up there as well. And Pittsburgh, again, there's a motivation for these guys to get back to the playoffs. There's a motivation for these guys to end their careers together. They want to go out the right way. And they've done a lot of losing because they did a lot of winning. And maybe they just need an influx of a new voice. But to me, the Pittsburgh Penguins, what they've done, you could call it an overreaction, but it's probably not sustainable. Most of us thought they would be at the bottom of the division, but they've come out motivated. It's a motivated group, and they're finding ways to win. I just love what this team is doing because there were so many pieces people were trading. Malkin, Raquel, Rust, Karlsson, could have Jari been left. And they're overcoming it. And, right now, Sid's probably not going anywhere if he ever goes anywhere. And the Penguins are second in the Metro right now. And I don't think a lot of people peg them to be even sniffing a playoff spot this year.
No, Jim, they're not making the playoffs, the Penguins.
No, I know. But I'm just saying, like, the way they're playing, it's like, okay, yeah, we're putting people on notice that, hey, you know what? It's not over yet in Pittsburgh.
No, not over yet. Sidney Crosby will be in the playoffs one more time, at least, before he retires. Maybe we get one more Sid Ovi playoff matchup.
That would be
before they both ride off into the sunset.
Would be special.
Obviously, it would take some real finagling for that to be in the conference final. But Jim, what type of thing would that be? What type of story would that be if all of a sudden Sid and Ovechkin both announce before season, let's say it's next season, just argument's sake, they announce it's going to be their last years. They both lead their teams to the playoffs. One of them as a wild card has to cross over, and the other stays within division. And they go to the conference final. They meet in the conference final. And they have to play. The winner goes to the Stanley Cup final.
Wow.
And the loser goes to retirement. Jim, if that's not the ultimate WWE I Quit match, I don't know what is.
I mean, retirement match. That's it. Macho Man versus the Ultimate Warrior, WrestleMania 7. Imagine Crosby Ovechkin retirement game. Game 7, conference final. Winner goes. Loser retires. It'd be awesome. No, but it'd be awesome.
Can you imagine the overreactions and the stories that us media people will be having during the week and a half that series would go on?
I mean, it would be awesome.
It'd be awesome. I think, honestly, the fans on social media might have it out on a lot of the reporters if that indeed ever came to fruition.
Yeah, I think so. But I think it's a great place to end it because we've covered a lot today. Covered a lot of young teams. We've talked a lot about winning, streaks, the Devil, the Mammoth. How you lose, how you win. We've talked about the Sharks. Jessica Kwong, thank you so much for doing that. And guys, again, you know what to do. Got to subscribe. Stay on top. Blue Line Blast podcast coming to you every week. New episodes dropping. Jim Biringer, Matthew Blittner. Guys, take care. We'll be back again next week.